In the life that we are living today, everything seems to revolve around validation. People are constantly seeking approval, applause, recognition, and admiration. Social media has made it even more intense. A person might wake up in the morning and the first thing they do is check how many likes they got on a photo, how many views their video received, how many people commented on what they said. The desire to be seen, to be known, to be praised, it is so deeply embedded in society that many forget who they are truly meant to be pleasing. They begin to live for the world, adjusting their actions, their speech, even their beliefs just so they can earn a moment of appreciation from others, forgetting that the hearts of people change so easily. One day they lift you up, and the next they pull you down. The same mouths that cheer for you can jeer at you. The same eyes that admire you can despise you. And the same hands that clap for you can point at you in blame. This is the nature of worldly validation. It is temporary, it is fragile, it is deceptive. When a person begins to live for the applause of others, they become a slave to those opinions. Every decision is measured by how people will perceive it. Their happiness is held hostage by the words of others. If people praise them, they smile. If people criticize them, they collapse. This is not freedom. This is bondage. True freedom lies in detaching from what people think and focusing entirely on what Allah thinks. Because Allah's opinion does not change. Allah does not flip overnight. His love is not based on popularity or status. His mercy is not withdrawn based on the number of followers or the size of one's platform. Allah's approval is not earned through worldly standards. It is earned through sincerity, through humility, through quiet acts of goodness that no one may see but Him. When you understand that, you begin to live with peace. You no longer worry about impressing people. You no longer chase after attention. You begin to live in a way that pleases Allah. And suddenly, the weight of the world is lifted. There's a tranquility in knowing that if Allah is pleased with you, it doesn't matter who is displeased. And if Allah is displeased with you, no amount of public love can help. You realize that the value of your deeds lies not in their visibility, but in their sincerity. Even a hidden tear shed for the sake of Allah is more beloved than a grand gesture done to be seen. Even a single coin given in charity privately can outweigh mountains of wealth donated with pride. But this shift in mindset doesn't happen automatically. It requires deep reflection. Ask yourself, who am I trying to impress? Who am I really dressing for, speaking for, working, living for? If the answer is anyone other than Allah, then the heart needs to be reoriented. The reality is that no matter how much you try, you can never please everyone. Someone will always find a flaw. Someone will always criticize. Someone will always misunderstand. But Allah never misjudges. Allah never overlooks sincerity. Allah never disregards the pain you go through silently. People might overlook your struggles, but Allah sees every effort. He knows when you're trying, even when the world thinks you're failing. He knows when you're battling your desires, when you're sacrificing your comfort, when you're letting go of the haram even though it's easy to access. And the most beautiful part is Allah doesn't need to be impressed. He already knows who you are. He already knows your intentions. He doesn't require you to prove yourself through external shows of pity. What He wants is your heart. What He wants is your loyalty. What He wants is your submission, your humility, your trust in Him over everything else. When you truly live for Allah's pleasure, you walk differently. You speak with purpose. You let go of the constant need to explain yourself. You don't panic when others don't understand you. You stop competing with others for status. You start competing for closeness to your Lord. You replace comparison with gratitude. You replace insecurity with tawakkul. And you begin to taste the sweetness of faith that no number of followers or likes can ever bring. The danger of living to please people is that it often leads to compromising your values. You begin to water down your principles to fit into spaces where you were never meant to belong. You start adopting the standards of others instead of holding firm to the guidance of the Quran and Sunnah. And little by little, your connection with Allah begins to fade. It doesn't usually happen in one moment. It starts subtly. You tell yourself, it's just one comment. Then it becomes, it's just one outfit. Then it turns into, it's just one gathering, one friend, one post, one behavior. Slowly, the line between right and wrong becomes blurry. And before you know it, you're standing in a place your heart once knew was dangerous, all for the sake of being accepted. But at what cost? If the approval of the people comes at the expense of Allah's pleasure, then you've sold yourself short. You've traded eternal reward for temporary validation. You've given up sincerity for popularity. You've exchanged light for darkness. And the price is heavy. You might gain the admiration of the world, but you lose the peace of your soul. You might become famous in people's eyes, but unknown in the sight of Allah. That is a dangerous trade. Because the day will come when every person who once praised you will be gone. Their opinions won't matter. Their claps won't echo. Their comments won't count. But Allah will still be there, and He will ask, "What did you do to earn my pleasure?" And if the answer is, "I live for people," then what defense will remain? Compromising your faith is not just about major sins. Sometimes it's about the way you stay silent when the truth needs to be spoken, just because you fear backlash. Sometimes it's about the way you delay your prayers because you're too busy entertaining others. Sometimes it's about how you hold back your values because you're worried they won't accept you if you show who you really are. But remember, every step you take to preserve your faith, even when it's hard, is honored by Allah. Every time you say no to a crowd, every time you walk away from a place that pulls you away from Allah, every time you choose modesty over fashion, truth over popularity, integrity over convenience, those are victories in the sight of your Lord. And don't think that compromise only happens in public. Sometimes the most dangerous compromise is the one happening in your heart in private. When you start justifying wrong, when you start becoming comfortable with disobedience, when you start convincing yourself that it's not that serious, that's when your soul begins to drift. That's when your Salah feels empty, your dust feels dry, your connection with Allah feels distant. But it's never too late to return. Allah is always ready to accept you, no matter how far you've gone. The moment you turn back to Him sincerely, He brings you back closer than you were before. But that requires you to stop living for people and start living for Him again. It requires you to realign your purpose, to remind yourself that the path of Jannah is not paved with applause. It is paved with sacrifice, sincerity, and steadfastness. When we study the lives of the prophets, peace be upon them all, one of the most striking realities we observe is that their mission was never easy, and their popularity among the people was never guaranteed. In fact, many of them were rejected by their communities, mocked by their nations, ridiculed for the messages they carried. And yet these were the most beloved of all people to Allah. Their value was not based on how many followers they had. Their status was not measured by applause or popularity. Their greatness came from the sincerity of their hearts, the strength of their conviction, and their unwavering commitment to the truth despite the trials they endured. Take the example of Nasno, peace be upon him. He preached the message of Tawheed for 950 years. Can you imagine the patience required to call people to the same message for nearly a millennium, and yet only a handful responded? Today, if someone doesn't get enough likes on a post, they delete it. If a speaker isn't applauded, they become discouraged. But Nu stood firm, not for days, not for months, not for years, but for centuries. He wasn't doing it for fame. He wasn't seeking validation. His purpose was to please Allah. His strength came from knowing that his job was to convey, not to convert. Success was not in the numbers. Success was in the sincerity. Then look at Abraham, peace be upon him. A young man standing alone against an entire nation, including his own father. They worshipped idols, and he stood firm on Tawheed. He broke their idols and was thrown into a fire for it. Did he compromise to please the people? Did he say, "Let me just blend in for now, I don't want them to hate me"? No, he knew that truth doesn't bend for people. The love of Allah was greater than the fear of rejection. And when he was cast into the fire, it was Allah who commanded the fire to be cool and safe. That's what happens when you choose Allah over everyone else. He makes the impossible possible for you. Then we have Moses, peace be upon him. He stood up against the most powerful tyrant of his time, Pharaoh. A man who declared himself God, who had armies at his command, who slaughtered innocents out of fear and arrogance. And yet, Musa walked into his palace with a heart full of trust in Allah. He knew the odds were against him. He knew the people might not believe. But he also knew that he wasn't alone. He had Allah on his side. He didn't need the approval of the masses. He didn't need to be celebrated. He just needed to fulfill his mission with courage and faith. And what about Isa and Jesus? Peace be upon him. a prophet born miraculously. You came with clear signs, who healed the sick by Allah's permission, who spoke with wisdom from the cradle. Yet, so many rejected him. They plotted against him. They tried to crucify him. But his status was never diminished by their disbelief. He remained honored in the sight of Allah, regardless of what people said or did. That is the reality of divine success. It is not dependent on public opinion. It is rooted in unwavering devotion to the Creator. And the greatest example of all is the final prophet, Muhammad Zen. He was known as Al-Amin, the trustworthy, even before prophethood. He was loved by his people, respected by his society. But the moment he began to preach the truth, everything changed. The same people who once admired him turned against him. He was insulted, boycotted, attacked. His companions were tortured. He was forced out of his home, ridiculed by Puts, mocked by the leaders of Quraysh. But he never gave up. He didn't say, "Let me change the message so they'll accept me." He didn't say, "Let me soften the truth to win their hearts." No, he remained firm, because his mission was not to please people. It was to deliver the truth, and throughout his life, he made it clear. Success is not in being praised by people, but in being accepted by Allah. Even in his final moments, his concern was not about how history would remember him. His concern was his ummah. His concern was the connection between the servant and his Lord. That is the legacy we are meant to follow. We are not here to chase fame. We are not here to win popularity contests. We are here to live lives of integrity, humility, and sincerity. It's important to understand this deeply, because today, many people equate success with being known. They think if they are not being praised, they are failing. But if that were true, the prophets would have been the most failed people in terms of public opinion. Yet they were the most successful in the sight of Allah. That's the scale we must use. If Allah is pleased with you, you have succeeded, even if the entire world turns away. And if Allah is displeased with you, you have failed, even if the entire world cheers for you. So let the legacy of the prophets be your reminder. When you're mocked for standing for truth, you're in the company of the most honored. When you're rejected for staying firm on your faith, you're walking the path of the righteous. When you feel alone for upholding your values, remember that every prophet faced loneliness too. But they were never truly alone, because Allah was with them. Let the rejections of people strengthen your connection with Allah. Let their disapproval push you closer to the one whose approval truly matters. And let every hardship you endure for the sake of your faith be a badge of honor. For you are following in the footsteps of those who were chosen by Allah Himself. This is not just a motivational thought. It's a deep reality that must be lived every day. It's a mindset that must be nurtured in every interaction, in every challenge, in every moment of doubt. Pleasing Allah is not just the better choice. It's the only choice for the one who seeks real success. There comes a time in everyone's life when they are tested, not with calamity, not with loss, not hardship in the material sense, but with a test of principles. A time when the easy road leads to compromise, and the difficult road leads to the pleasure of Allah. This is when a believer is truly separated from the one who merely claims faith with the tongue. Because when it becomes unpopular to speak the truth, when standing for what's right brings isolation, mockery, or rejection, that is when your sincerity is truly revealed. It's easy to be religious when religion is celebrated. It's easy to be modest when modesty is trendy. It's easy to speak about morality when everyone is cheering for it. But what happens when the tides change? What happens when holding onto your values makes you the odd one out? That's where real integrity begins. Integrity is not about convenience. It is not about doing the right thing when the cameras are on, or when there's something to gain. It is about standing your ground when you have every reason to walk away. It's about saying no when everyone expects a "ah yes." It's about refusing to change your faith to fit someone else's comfort. It's about praying on time even if you're in the middle of a crowded space. It's about lowering your gaze when everyone else is looking freely. It's about staying honest when lying could get you ahead. It's about being kind when cruelty is trending. It's about holding yourself accountable even when no one else is watching. The Prophet said that there will a time when holding on to your religion will be like holding on to a burning coal. Imagine that pain. Imagine the struggle. But he also said that in such times, the reward for remaining steadfast would be greater than the reward of 50 of his companions. Why? Because the environment is hostile. Because staying firm requires more than ritual. It requires courage, resilience, sincerity, and love for Allah that surpasses the fear of loss. When society begins to ridicule your faith, when people start attacking your values, when your belief system is labeled backwards, you will be tempted to shrink. You'll be tempted to stay quiet. You'll feel the pressure to conform, to blend in, to dilute your principles so that you don't stand out. But you must remember, true success is not in being accepted by a society that keeps changing its values. It is in being accepted by a Lord who never changes. His guidance is consistent. His pleasure is not based on trends. And His approval is eternal. In a world of shifting standards, standing for truth makes you timeless. When you hold firmly to what Allah loves, even when the world turns away, you become beloved to Him. And being beloved to Allah is worth more than anything the world can offer. So don't be ashamed of your beliefs. Don't apologize for your modesty. Don't hide your identity. Don't downplay your faith. The moment you feel ashamed of a command from Allah, ask yourself, whose approval are you really seeking? The people who don't even control their own heartbeat, or the one who created every heart and can change every heart in a moment? Sometimes integrity means walking alone, but you're never truly alone when you walk with Allah. Sometimes it means losing opportunities, but you gain something far greater: respect from the angels, love from your Lord, and peace in your heart. Because deep down, even those who criticize you secretly admire your strength. Even those who mock your boundaries respect your discipline. They might never admit, but integrity shines in a world full of compromise. It leaves a mark. It inspires. And more importantly, it builds your soul into something unshakable. Don't measure your worth by how comfortable you make others feel. Measure it by how closely you're walking the path of the prophets. And he was called names. He was laughed at. He was opposed in public and even attacked. But he never gave up his message. He didn't twist his words to make them more appealing. He didn't water down the truth to avoid backlash. He lived with integrity, and so did his companions. Bilal R.A. was tortured for saying, Ahadun Ahad, one God, one God. He could just remain silent and saved himself, but he didn't. Because he wasn't living to please his torturers. He was living to please the one who created him. That's integrity. Think of Sumayya en Rak, the first martyr of Islam. She didn't back down. She stood for what she believed in, even as the enemy tried to break her spirit. That courage came from knowing that pleasing Allah is worth more than the entire world. That's why when we compromise our integrity for popularity, we're actually lowering ourselves. We're saying that the opinions of people who don't even know us matter more than the opinion of the one who shaped us in our mother's wombs. We're saying that being liked by others is more important than being forgiven by Allah. And that mindset is dangerous, because people's opinions change with the wind. One day they cheer, the next day they boo. One day they praise you, the next day they tear you apart. But Allah's view of you is based on your truth, your sincerity, your heart or soul. Be the one who chooses to be different for the right reasons. Be the one who walks away from the wrong, even if everyone else is walking toward it. Be the one who prays in public, who dresses with dignity, who speaks with truth, who refuses to lie, cheat, or disobey. And even if you're the only one doing it, keep going. Because one person standing in truth with Allah is stronger than an entire crowd standing in falsehood. This is not arrogance. It's confidence in your faith. This is not rebellion. It's devotion to your values. When you live with integrity, you may not always be the most popular, but you will always be the most respected in the heavens. People will test you. They will push your boundaries. They will try to convince you that you're too strict, too conservative, too closed-minded. But you don't need to respond with anger. Just respond with consistency, because actions speak louder than defense. Let your character reflect your faith. Let your firmness reflect your belief in a higher purpose. And let your silence speak when your deeds already speak volumes. Living with integrity is not about being perfect. It's about striving, trying, and refusing to give up when things get hard. It's about holding tightly to the rope of Allah, even if the wind of society tries to pull you away. That strength doesn't come from your ego. It comes from your connection with your Lord. In a world where success is constantly redefined, where the bar keeps shifting higher and higher, where one moment of failure can overshadow years of effort, the heart finds itself restless. People chase positions, titles, wealth, beauty, fame, and influence, hoping that once they have enough, they will finally feel at peace. But what happens when they reach those goals? The silence of their hearts remains. The emptiness doesn't go away. The applause fades. The cameras turn off. The luxury becomes normal. The admiration becomes expectation. And the soul, that sacred part of us created by Allah, begins to age. Not because we haven't achieved enough in the world, but because we have forgotten our true purpose. Real success isn't in reaching the top of the world. It's in reaching closeness to Allah. That is the only success that brings lasting peace, unshakable contentment, and eternal joy. The pleasure of Allah is not just a spiritual reward. It is the very oxygen of the heart. When you live to please Him, everything else aligns. You might not have the fanciest car, the biggest house, the trendiest clothes, but you have something money cannot buy. A heart at ease, a mind free from anxiety, a soul that sleeps peacefully at night because it knows it's walking in the light of Allah's guidance. People who live for the world are never satisfied. They want more followers, more praise, more attention, more recognition. But those who live for Allah are satisfied with even the smallest blessing, because they see through different eyes. They live by different standards. They don't care if the world doesn't applaud them, as long as Allah accepts them. And that is what makes them free. When you tie your happiness to the approval of people, you become their servant. But when you tie it to the approval of Allah, you become His servant. And that is the highest honor. His standards never change. His love is not based on popularity. His mercy does not depend on your followers. He doesn't care how many people cheered for you. He looks at how much you feared Him when no one was watching. He doesn't look at the size of your stage. He looks at the sincerity in your sada. He doesn't look at how loud your voice is. He looks at how soft your heart is when you remember Him. That is the scale that matters. Eternal success is not marked by a trophy or an award. It is marked by the book in your right hand on the day of judgment. It is marked by the joy of hearing your name called as you walk to the gates of Jannah. It is marked by the satisfaction of standing before Allah and knowing you tried your best to please Him. Even when the world was displeased with you, that is the moment everything will make sense. All the tears, the sacrifices, the loneliness, the pain of being misunderstood, it will all melt away when you hear your Lord say, I am pleased with you. That is the greatest reward. That is the moment every true believer longs for. And that is the moment that defines success, but it doesn't come without effort. Pleasing Allah requires you to swim against the current. It requires you to choose what is halal over what is easy. It requires you to lower your gaze when others stare freely. It requires you to bite your tongue when you want to retaliate. It requires you to give in charity even when your finances are tight. It requires you to be honest even when a lie could save your reputation. It requires you to guard your prayers, to protect your modesty, to forgive when you want revenge, to be silent when gossip is tempting. It requires you to keep going when your heart feels broken, when the dunya becomes heavy, when the people disappoint you. Because the one whose eyes are fixed on Jannah doesn't get distracted by the flickering lights of this world. And the beautiful thing is, Allah is so merciful that even your intention to please Him is rewarded. Even the tears you shed in regret are written as worship. Even the moment you hold back from sin, just for His sake, becomes a moment of honor. When you turn down a haram opportunity, when you delete that inappropriate message, when you change the topic instead of backbiting, when you walk away from something tempting, not because you didn't want it, but because you wanted Allah more, that is real strength. That is real success. The world might not see it, they might not appreciate it, but the angels record it, and your soul feels it, because every time you choose Allah, your heart becomes lighter. Every time you say no to sin for His sake, your soul feels purer. Every time you pray with sincerity, your chest feels calmer. That's not a coincidence. That's peace. The kind of peace that only comes from pleasing the one who created you. The Prophet once said that there are some people who, if they were to raise their hands to make a dua, Allah would never reject them. Do you know why? Because they spent their lives in quiet servitude, hidden worship, sincere intentions. They weren't famous. They weren't loud. They weren't known by the world, but they were known by the heavens. The angels mentioned their names. Their tears were known to the throne. Their dust rose like incense to the skies. That is the success we should be striving for. Not the headlines, not the interviews, not the admiration of strangers, but the unseen pleasure of Allah, the unseen love of the angels, the unseen barakah that follows you wherever you go. So reflect deeply. Ask yourself every day, did I please Allah today? Did I choose Him over my ego? Did I seek His reward over people's attention? Did I act out of sincerity or out of desire for recognition? These are the questions that shape our destiny. And remember, Allah never leaves the heart of the one who sincerely tries to please Him. Even when you fall short, even when you make mistakes, as long as you keep turning back to Him, He keeps raising you. That's His promise. The world gives up on you when you mess up, but Allah draws you nearer when you repent. His doors never close. His mercy is never withheld. And His love is never taken away when it's sincerely sought. So live every day seeking His pleasure. Wake up not to impress the world, but to earn the gaze of the most merciful. Sleep with the comfort that if the world rejects you, but Allah accepts you, you are already successful. And carry that truth in your heart through every trial, every hardship, every test. Let it be the compass that guides you through confusion, the light that pulls you out of darkness, the peace that holds you when the world lets go. Because the one who lives for Allah never loses. My brothers, my sisters, when the dust of this world settles and the curtain of life falls, none of the people whose approval we chased will be able to help us. None of the applause, none of the fame, none of the compliments will count for anything. The cars, the titles, the bank accounts, the number of followers, all of it will stay behind. What will remain is your soul and your deeds. What will matter is whether your heart lived for the creation or for the Creator, whether your decisions were based on popularity or on piety, whether you spent your life seeking to impress the world or seeking to please the Lord of the worlds. Real success is not measured by how loudly the world praises you. Real success is when the angels praise you in the heavens. It's when your deeds speak on your behalf in your grave. It's when your record is handed to you in your right hand. It's when you are called by name on the day of judgment to enter Jannah. That's the success we must strive for. That's the life we should be chasing. That's the path that may be harder at times, lonelier at times, but it is the path of the prophets. It is the path of integrity. It is the path of light. It is the only path that leads to true and eternal peace. So, my beloved brothers and sisters, as you walk through the storms of life, as you navigate the pressures, the expectations, the judgments, the noise, keep your heart anchored to one question: is Allah pleased with me? That is your compass. That is your strength. That is your salvation. The people who truly succeed are not those who please everyone, but those who live to please the one who created everyone. And when you live like that, when you live for Allah and not for people, you will find a peace that no one can take away. You will walk with dignity even when you are alone. You will smile with sincerity even when the world frowns at you. Because you know, deep within your soul, that the one who matters most is already pleased with you. And that is real success.